Just as a switch flip would turn things on and off, it seems like we've had that switch flip in the crypto market. What I mean by that is the bears are headed for the door, the bulls are returning. And we may have actually just witnessed one of the hardest pivots we have seen in the crypto market just in a single day. Now, I'm not saying that this is the moment that we boom. I'm not saying we're in euphoria or anything like that, but there is in fact a calculated climb that is projected for ADA that we do need to have a discussion about, as well as this institutional pause and big surge in global M2 liquidity, because again, the markets tend to follow what the capital is doing. So again, make sure you guys show your support for the channel if you haven't already, but we're going to dive right in. ADA right now at about 63.70. Right now it's about 6:50 a.m. Central Standard Time. It's a weekend. I'm expecting low volume once again. That's just the trend that we have been on as the weekends have gone on. Understand that there still is a lot of leverage that could be liquidated either direction. But again, bears have been getting crushed more and more and more lately because they've gotten too confident. And that's a great sign for the market. Now, what's interesting is that there is actually an analyst, Gem XBT, hopefully I'm saying his name right, and he pointed out something very interesting in terms of ADA. What this actually says is that the price is steadily above the 5, 10, and 20-hour moving averages in terms of ADA. And this alignment of short-term averages typically signals sustained buying pressure and growing bullish momentum in the market. Now, what he's actually talking about is a couple resistance levels we do in fact have to fight through. We got to break through 68 cents. We have 81, 90 cents, $1.17, which is obviously still quite a ways above here. And then all the way up at about $1.58. And, those are some levels that we've talked about in terms of ADA before. Again, the big one right now is right at about that 20-day moving average. I'm going to keep mentioning it till we break it because that's the biggest point of resistance that ADA has in its charts. And the thing is now with the bears beginning to ease up, it makes a sustained move above here quite a bit easier. I'm not again saying we're gonna have the type of euphoria that we saw back on, what was that, March 2nd, but we can start to see bigger moves across the crypto market. And really one thing that has allowed us to open up in a much bigger way is this institutional pause. So over the last 24 hours, institutional players only dumped $1.03 million worth of BTC. That is, for all intents and purposes, a pause, because they have been dumping hundreds of millions of dollars per day for quite some time. We obviously had a nice bulk period in the back half of March where they were accumulating, but for the most part, it's been dump on the tariff news, on economic uncertainty, all these different things that have been kind of clouding the market that retail has really been capitulating into. It's now kind of dissipated, and that's given pause to institutional players. On the Ethereum side, they did do some dumping there, $29 million a day, mostly grayscale. Again, that's kind of falling in line with what we were seeing in the early part of institutional players in the space. Now, what's very interesting here is we've talked about global M2 liquidity before, but we haven't really been able to put it on a chart. But guys, this is what it looks like. And you guys can see BTC is very closely correlated with global M2. And we just got to this point where we saw a massive surge in terms of M2 liquidity just over a 3-day period. And we're now getting to that point of inflection in the correlation between these charts. And what this could mean is that BTC might have a little bit of chop for most of this month. Again, we could be up, we could be down, doesn't really matter here, because eventually, and this shows a 108-day lag here, eventually the charts start to run. In fact, where this really shows us kind of hard pivoting and starting to move to the upside is right at the end of April. And this is why I keep saying that, putting deadlines on stuff, oh, something needs to happen by this day or I'm done, I'm moving on. That stuff does not make sense. And people can do what they want. Understand that the market will not be held down forever. There's only so much of assets to go around. There's only so much of ADA to go around. And then we continue on our longer term trends, which is up and to the right. For anybody that needs to see this, just look at a weekly chart. All right. Look at the direction of things. It's up and to the right, up and to the right, right? There's always times where you have big dips, big corrections in the crypto market, even in bull market cycles. And the question then lies is, was this just the shortest bull market cycle ever? Or are we going to continue to follow trend and get longer and longer and longer? And I would say it's going to get longer and longer because there are more people accumulating. There are more entities accumulating. And yes, again, there's hiccups along the way. Just look at intra-cycle, guys. We have dips where we go on these big corrections, even in terms of RSI, before going on our massive surges. All right. Even last market cycle, we had a nice breakout into the overbought range, drop back down in the summer of 2021, and then had a nice surge. And even as we set a new all-time high, RSI hadn't even broken out there. I mean, we have a lot of potential for what this cycle could bring for prices, for ADA, for the overall crypto market. And understand that, we're still even at a time where the massive wave of adoption hasn't even started. Do we really think that adoption is going to just flat out dead stop? Or do we think it's going to accelerate? It's going to accelerate. That's how adoption works. So the biggest thing I can say is just be patient. Let things play out. You can obviously do what you want. It looks like we are at least on a short-term correction, and it's a question of does it have enough momentum to carry us to new highs across the space? So I appreciate you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts below, but have a great day. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.